I just finished painting my brand new Imperial Knights Dominus. You know, this guy, this big stompy boy. The Dominus isn't the name of the model, it's the name of the kit that makes either the Castellan or the Valiant versions of this robot, and I had a really good time with it. More than anything else, I have this really big stompy robot as a result of my efforts, and man, it's hard not to be excited about having one of these. It's such a big model, it's glorious. And so, you know, I'm kind of working on the excitement, that high of finishing a project that I'm really happy with. And now that I've finished him, he can hang out with these two little buddies, which really aren't all that little, but they're little compared to him. I have the start of, you know, kind of a cool looking little army. Again, little in quotes. And I don't know, I got the bug, I'm excited. I want to make my army bigger, I want to make it, I don't know, a nice 2,000 point army. This is all I've got, and this is what, like 700 points? Not enough for, well, anything. I mean, I don't play Warhammer 40k, I haven't in many, many years, but I still want to build an army that I could field, theoretically, if I ever decided I want to play. So, how do I expand this army? Well, I can get a couple more of these big boys, but I looked at some of the lists, and it looks like people who play Imperial Guard Knights, and it looks like people who play Imperial Knights play with just a few of these guys and a bunch of these guys. The lists that I've seen run somewhere between 4 and 6 of those Armigers. It seems reasonable to me. You have a couple of big boys to engage in those really big threats, and you have your other Armigers locking down control point, and then you have your Armigers locking down victory points or locking down control zones, whatever they're called, the objectives. You have those little guys running around controlling objectives and adding damage wherever it is that they can get their hands on it. So that seems like the next logical step. Find a few boxes of Armigers, build them up, paint them, and add them to the rest of my army on the shelf where they live. The problem is that I can't. I can't find them anywhere. They're out of stock everywhere I've looked. And this isn't the first time this has happened to me. And I'm sure it's happened to you at least once, probably more, because this is Games Workshop after all. So what do? Why the heck does this happen? I don't know why it happened, but I think it's good to talk about it just to kind of understand what's going on. So, hello and welcome to Your Average Bear Gaming. I am George. Today we'll talk about Games Workshop and how famously they're always out of stock of that one thing you need. So when I realized that I wanted to add to my army with a couple of Armigers, I went to the first place I usually go to, is my friendly local game store. Now, I didn't have my hopes up because it's one of those mom and pop shops that you probably play the majority of your games, if you do play your games in public anyway. And they don't have a really big selection. They have kind of a few core items, they have a couple racks of paints, but I didn't really expect to find any Armigers, and I was right, they didn't have any. But I wasn't bummed out because that's really not what they do. My next stop was the Games Workshop Webstore, which is my usual stop for stuff that I want, but my store probably wouldn't have, and I want it shipped from a reliable company, and I want it shipped pretty quickly. It's usually my second stop. It's the place where I know I'm going to find what I'm looking for most of the time. It'll be a decent price, and I'll get it shipped to me pretty quickly. Except that, yeah, out of stock there too. That's a bummer. So what to do? Well, I visited the web stores of a couple of those friendly local game stores that I've visited in my travels across the United States. They oftentimes have boxes of Warhammer 40k stuff that I typically don't see in my local store. They tend to be bigger, they serve larger markets, and so they're going to have more stuff. So I thought, well, I found Armigers in one of those stores before. Maybe one of them will have one that they'll sell to me and ship my way. And sadly, no, that didn't happen either. I hit my usual spots, and not only did they not have any Armigers, but most of them didn't even have a web store. Like, for some of them, you can buy something and pick it up at the store. In one case, you could even get it delivered to you by Uber. That was interesting. I've never needed plastic models quite that badly, but it's nice to know that it's there in certain markets. And a couple of those stores that I visited didn't even have a web store. Like, you couldn't see what they had in stock. If you want to buy something from them and you're not in the store, you're SOL. If you don't know what that means, I'm not going to be the one to tell you. So at this point, I'm getting desperate. The models that I wanted weren't at my local friendly game store, they weren't at Games Workshop, they weren't at stores that I have visited in the past, so I expanded my search. I went to Miniature Market, which is my kind of go-to web store for things that I can't find or stuff that isn't available to me locally, like paints, for example. When I want to buy some Army painter paints, I usually go there. They have better prices than anything you'll find on Amazon, and they'll ship quickly, and I know I can count on them. But they also sell models, and every once in a while, I'll go to their store to see what they have available. They didn't have any. I expanded my search even further, so I ended up hitting every store that I could see, well, about 4 pages of Google search results. None of them had the Armigers. So I looked everywhere that I can think of looking. Zero, zilch, nada. I did find one store with some Armigers in stock, 1 box, but they didn't have any delivery options. That's a bummer. So I couldn't find any anywhere. Hey, this is Editor George here. I do all the video editing for that other guy. I broke into the video because I have a little bit of an update and a confession. You see, what happened was that George made a mistake on the eBay pricing. You see, he really doesn't like having to buy Warhammer 40k models on eBay. Scalpers are gross, generally. But I did a little fact checking, and it turns out they did have a few Armiger kits there, and the price, it wasn't all that bad. I mean, it was more than usual, but $102 for 2 Armigers. I picked up 2 boxes. Yeah, I know, I'm the problem. But I really like the plastic. So, you know, mea culpa and all that, but I'll let the rant continue because what follows, it still stands. So, bye. What gives? And I thought back to the few times where I've had similar problems. I mean, I didn't look this extensively for whatever models I was looking for, but this whole phenomenon of Games Workshop not having something in stock anywhere in the country, this isn't the first time it's happened to me. And what the heck? Why is this a thing? And in fact, it's so common, I bet you if I go to Games Workshop Webstore right now, I can find a bunch of items that you cannot buy, that they stock, but that you cannot buy right now. Let's take a look. Alright, so I'm checking out Armies of the Imperium, Imperial Knights. You'll see these here. And we'll scroll down, and they don't have the index cards. Is that a thing that people are buying? Gross. So the Armiger Helvrins and Warglaves are out. I mean, it's the same kit, so yeah, they're going to be out of both of those. The Knight Dominus. This guy is also out. You can't get him. Now, I haven't checked on the Dominus to see if it's not available anywhere, but it's not available directly from Games Workshop, so there's that. There's the Cerastus Knights Lancer. That looks really cool, but I don't really know how it fits into the Imperial Knights army. Is it a 40k army? Is it a 30k army? I thought it was a 30k army. I don't know. But whatever it is, you can't get it online. But that's also a brand new model, so they always run out of that stuff too. Ugh, that's a kind of a horrible trend, Games Workshop. Okay, so I checked out the Astra Militarum. It's one of my other armies that I've been kind of just slow rolling because I don't really have an idea of what I want to do, but I do know that I've wanted some basilisks, and wouldn't you know it, they don't have any basilisks. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen basilisks for a while, and I've checked because I've wanted to get a few. I've kind of toying the idea that my Imperial Guard army is going to be an artillery kind of a... I don't know, in my mind I was thinking my regiment would be led by Commissar Kane, gloriously leading his Imperial Guard into battle. And Commissar Kane is often supported by an artillery regiment, and I thought, well, an artillery regiment needs basilisks, and no basilisks. They've been out of stock for months. Maybe a year? I don't know for sure. But how has such a mainline unit of Imperial Guards not been available for months? That's ridiculous. And they're out of Manticores or Death Strikes, so you can play Imperial Guard, just don't take any artillery units. Yeah, that's a thing. Now, I didn't even bother checking the Xenos armies because we know Games Workshop and the Xenos armies, so I'm not even going to bother. I'm sure they're out of half of that stuff. So I figured Space Marines, right? Space Marines are always going to be nice and stocked everywhere you go, and lo and behold, yeah, page 5, Primaris Hellblasters, you can't get any of those right now. The Land Raider, you can't get a Land Raider right now. I don't know how long that's been out of stock, but I imagine it's been there for a while. Now, maybe Games Workshop is redesigning them. Maybe. Primaris Tech Marine, you can't get those. Space Marines Chaplain. Oof, this list is rough. Blade Guard Veterans, Devastator Squad, Primaris Aggressors, Inceptors? I don't have any of those, but they look cool and you can't get them. Primaris Eradicators, the Bikes, Heavy Intercessors. What the heck is happening, Games Workshop? These are like your core items and people can't get them. Now, I don't know how long they've been out of circulation or how long they've been out of stock, but it seems weird that a company designed to make as much money as possible for their shareholders doesn't have stuff to sell you. The stuff that it's pushing, the stuff that it wants you to buy, it doesn't have them. How does that happen? It's hard for me to comprehend because I'm an American, right? So Americans, we are steeped in capitalism, and the one thing we know is that in America, if you want to buy something, there's 80 people, 80 companies who are lining up to sell it to you. Having Games Workshop be out of Space Marine units, it's like McDonald's being out of French fries. It just boggles the mind. So how do we get there? And I don't have any answers because I don't work at Games Workshop. I'm not at the strategy meetings. I don't know what their challenges are. I can think of kind of two things. Well, there's one thing, but there's a thing nested inside it. So logistics, right? Logistics, I think, is hard. It's one thing for a company to create doohickeys for consumers to buy. It's another thing entirely to get those doohickeys in their hot little hands. That's what we call logistics. It's a supply chain thing, right? It's getting inputs into your factories, creating the products that you then ship to either a retailer or directly to your consumers. But that chain of transportation of materials and products into the hands of your consumers, that's what we call logistics. And it's tough. There's a whole lot of things involved, transportation, labor availability, warehousing. It's a huge thing, and it's a big industry. I don't know enough about it except that it feels like it's very difficult. Except that lots of other companies have figured this out. And Games Workshop, at least for as long as I've been back in the hobby, has never done a good job of logistics. And maybe this has something to do less with Games Workshop and their United States operations, because when I went looking for these Armigers, I found some in the UK. They did do international shipping, but I was like, well, okay, I want these Armigers, but I don't want to do international shipping. I don't know, maybe I'll revisit that decision. But what this should suggest to me is that the stuff that is out of stock, it's out of stock here in the US. not in the UK. Now, this isn't a comprehensive statement because I only looked at that one thing. Maybe they're out of stock everywhere else. Who knows, right? But getting stuff from, well, let's be real, from China to the United States can be challenging, but somehow it's less challenging to get them to the UK. I think there's something weird there, right? Their business operations are different in the UK and possibly Europe somehow than they are here. Maybe we're a smaller market, or maybe overall Games Workshop has a smaller market share here than it does in the UK or Europe in general. I don't know. But there's a bit of a disconnect. And we've all heard some horror stories about, new products like the Leviathan box or the one before that. I forget what they're called. There's all those Kill Team boxes. They're plentiful everywhere else, but the US, you can't find anything after the 12 that you made available are gone. Yeah, I don't know. But see, one of the things about logistics that I think is harder, and I don't know if this is actual logistics, or maybe it's another branch, or maybe it's another part of operations, but it's a piece of the puzzle that I am familiar with, and that is prediction. Now, I suspect that logistics is hard. I know that prediction is hard because it's one of the tools in my professional toolkit. Predicting what's going to happen in the future. And I don't mean like in a tarot card kind of way or in horoscopes, although horoscopes are completely valid. It's prediction about, say, for example, in my industry, how many students would you expect next year? Or in my previous academic career, what behavior will these employees exhibit next quarter, next year? How long will it be before they quit or they find a new job? How happy are they, and will they put in the extra effort in their jobs? These are all different forms of prediction that we engage in fairly regularly, but it's really hard to do. Because in order to predict what happens in the future based on what you've observed in the past, you have to have a clear understanding of what factors, what variables, what conditions kind of added up to get to the behavior or the phenomenon that you observed in the past. Because without understanding that chain of causality, well, you don't know what caused a thing, and if you don't know what caused a thing, you can't predict the future thing. And I use causality in a very loose way because most of the work that we do in this field is not causal. It's not experimental, it's what we call correlational. It's basically just a bunch of data points that they all relate to each other in a certain way. One thing influences another, which influences another, and maybe there's 12 different things influencing this one central thing. But if you know how those web of influences work, you can get a pretty decent shot of predicting how you're going to do in the future, how the future will work. At least in the limited sense that you've modeled, right? That whole pattern of influences from some variables to another variable. If you understand their relationship, you can make some reasonable guesses about what's going to happen in the future. So it leads me to think about Games Workshop's situation in kind of a different way. Because on one hand, Games Workshop is a huge company. In terms of market capitalization, in other words, how much investors think the company is worth, there's something like a $4 billion company. Now, that's no Apple, that's no Amazon, but $4 billion is huge. And I'm not a finance guy, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't mean that Games Workshop has $4 billion to, spread around, but it's a good indication of the size and the competence, professional capabilities of that organization. So you would think that with such a huge market capitalization, they knew what they were doing. They could at the very least get the products that they're making into the hands of their paying customers. And that isn't happening. All I can think of is that either they don't have any internal prediction capacity, maybe they want it and can't find it, or maybe they just don't know that they need it. All they know is that they keep having logistical problems or manufacturing problems, and that's probably not the situation. It just seems like they keep guessing wrong, right? They launch a new product, they don't have a good sense of how well that product is going to sell, so they don't make enough. Maybe sometimes they make too much, and so now they have a bunch of this inventory sitting around. What that tells me isn't that they're bad at planning, is that they don't know what numbers they're planning around. They haven't predicted it. And in fairness, prediction is hard, right? You have to understand the why. Like, why did I choose to need 2 more boxes of Armigers? Who the hell needs Armigers? How do you guess something like that? And yeah, that's hard. It's a lot more easy with your new products. You have a sense for each of them. You know, you have a sense for what you've sold in the past. You have a sense for what else is happening around you. But you also kind of have to have a sense for what your clients are interested in, what social media is talking about. And that stuff is hard. Understanding kind of trends, hell, just getting your hands on that data to run analyses, to make these predictions, that can be hard and expensive. So what's Games Workshop to do? I don't know. I don't have any easy answers for you. What I do know is that they've been failing in the same way for multiple years. Games Workshop, you have a problem. You know you have a problem, and you gotta fix it. Those of us who want to give you money for plastic really, really want you to get this fixed, because we really, really want to give you our money. So, could you, would you, please get it fixed? So, what about us? What do we do, right? We have a problem. We have a plastic toy that we can't get our hands on. Tantrums didn't work. So, what do we do? For me, I can think of a couple of possibilities. I guess maybe the more realistic thing is getting something else, I guess. I have multiple armies, most of which aren't complete, so I could just buy something from any of those armies, something that is in stock, and just, you know, build and paint that. That's a reasonable approach. But a hobby is not like, well, food, right? Food you need. Plastic toys, as cool as they look, I don't need this. I simply want it. And when you want something, your purchasing decisions are very different from those driven by need. This guy, I bought him because I happened to be visiting a store that had him. And I thought, ooh, cool, yoink, mine. These guys, the exact same thing. It was an impulse buy because I happened to be somewhere where these were in stock. I also kind of want to start my own Necron army. Not because I need it, not because they're new and shiny, because they're not, right? But I recently heard the audiobook of The Infinite and the Divine, and it was brilliant. It was an amazing story. The characters were amazing. And I want to buy a Necron army. But I don't want to pay 50 bucks here, 60 bucks there, 80 bucks there. I want to get like a battle force. And guess what Games Workshop doesn't have? A battle force. Or even the Christmas set. They didn't include any Necrons, which I get. They've, you know, Necrons have had lots of attention. But the point is, I didn't get to impulse buy. So that's $120, $200 that I didn't give Games Workshop. They could have just had it out of my pockets, gone, in return for a couple of bucks worth of plastic. But they didn't get my money because they didn't have something to sell me. Seems weird, right? So that's one option. What's option 2? Well, I have a pile of shame. I have this guy, impulse buy, and I have this guy, also impulse buy. There's a weird pattern. I don't want to think about that very hard. The point is, I have these. I could paint them, like, right now. But I don't want it. I wanted to buy something. I didn't want to paint something. I'm actually kind of kidding about that. Here's what I'm currently working on. It's the heavy weapons squad for my Imperial Guard army. And there's no rattling because the models are over on my workstation. So that's a thing that you can do. Maybe we can find something else to do. I've got games I've bought on Steam that I haven't even installed ever. I have a few games that I have installed that I haven't been playing. I could watch some YouTube. I could exercise, work out, go for a walk. Okay, yeah, I should do those anyway. There's plenty of things that I could be doing with my time. There's plenty of things that you could be doing with your time that are not Games Workshop. But you know, the problem with that, at least where Games Workshop is concerned, or should be concerned, is that any of those things that we do means that money that we have is going somewhere else and not to them. So really, the only conclusion I can draw after all that is that Games Workshop, you're losing at capitalism, and that's literally your only job, is to win at capitalism. You know, I'm not a shareholder of Games Workshop stock. I'm not big enough or important enough to have any influence whatsoever on Games Workshop's, you know, business and operation kind of approaches. It just seems weird, man, that they create this buzz, they create a demand that they then cannot fulfill, sometimes for months, years at a time. It seems negligent. It seems like if I was a major stockholder of Games Workshop stock, it seems like a problem I want to know about. And I'd want management at Games Workshop to fix, like, immediately. But I don't see it happening. I don't know anything about Games Workshop management. I don't know anything about their approaches. Maybe they're working on this problem furiously. Maybe they're not aware of the problem. I don't know. I suspect that there's going to need to be a change in leadership at Games Workshop for them to recognize a problem and work to fixing it. Because so far as I can tell, status quo is we'll continue to have these problems. So, all right, there's my rant. What about you guys? What do you do? How have you approached this? Do you have any horrible memories of wanting this model kit that you just couldn't find anywhere? Tell me about it in the comments. I reply to a lot of these, and I occasionally have conversations with people who are commenting. We go back and forth. It's kind of weird and kind of sad, but actually kind of fun as well. So if you have a story that you want to share, let me know. It'd be really cool to talk to you about it. That's it, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to my rant. Have a wonderful afternoon. Be nice to yourselves and each other. Peace.